Okay, Rabbi, so I will give a little introduction in Spanish and then in English. ¿It's okay?
Yeah.
Ok, bienvenidos a todos a otra plática de Spiritual Revolution y Shevet Ahim. Es un honor tenerlos a todos otra vez en otra de estas pláticas. Y hoy nos honramos con tener a Rabbi David Aaron, que es un conferencista internacional y una de las personas que más han impactado en mi vida, porque su forma de abordar los temas espirituales de Kabbalah, misticismo y Torah son únicas. No he tenido yo la oportunidad de conocerlo personalmente, pero creo que es una de las gran personalidades que tenemos hoy en día, en donde nos da esta introducción y este aprendizaje acerca de los conocimientos más profundos en temas de conocimiento personal y crecimiento, superación personal. Thank you, Rabbi David, for joining us on this session. I was telling the Hebre that you don't know me, but I know you very good. I don't know you personally, but I have written your books, and the way you transmit all your knowledge about Judaism and the principal questions that every person has to make in his life, you present it so clearly and so understand. You make it very available to everybody. So it's a pleasure and an honor to have you live all the way from the old city in Jerusalem here to Mexico City. And we're very honored to have you here. I want to thank personal to Steve Eisenberg, because he was the person that contacted us with you. Steve Eisenberg, we want to thank him publicly, and all those guys that are involved in all these speeches, we want to thank them personally, because without them, this would not be possible. So we're very excited. And what we were speaking about, that if somebody has any question, that they could write it in Spanish and we will explain it to you in English. Or if they want, they could also ask their question personally, live, person to person to you. That's also available. The only thing they have to do, that they have to write us in the chat that they want to come live on screen, and they could ask their questions personally. So again, we're very excited about this class, and we know this will be a very good opportunity to grow and to inspire us. Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This is a Shechianu B'Kimanu that I'm virtually in Mexico. I would have loved to be there, but maybe another time. I did have one student in all of my 40 years that's from Mexico, and discovered that I'm not a rabbi, but I'm a rabbino, which I would much prefer than being a rabbi. Rabbino sounds a lot more cool and fun. And what I want to share with you today, first of all, I'm broadcasting from my home over here. I live in the old city of Jerusalem. So this is really something miraculous, that somebody in Jerusalem could be speaking to you in Mexico. So I'm very grateful for the technology that Hashem, the Creator, has enabled us to have, so that we can do this learning together. And what I want to talk about is what it says on the flyer: discovering the greatness inside of you. And I know that what I'm going to share, humbly, you're going to like. And I say that humbly. Why am I so sure that what I'm going to share you're going to like? Because I'm going to talk about something that I know you're very interested in. You're very interested. I'm going to talk about you. I want to talk about who are you and what makes you valuable. And really, if I were offered the opportunity to speak the whole world, so far that hasn't been offered to me, but you never know. And I was told I could just give one of my classes. Which talk would I give? This is the talk I would give, not only to Jewish people, I would give this to the whole world. Because I cannot think of anything more important than getting in touch with who we really are. Actually, as I was having dinner, something came up on my phone, something called Celebrities Talk About Happiness. And there's all these very famous people that you and I know talking about how unhappy they are and how money and fame did not make them happy, and how they realized that the secret to their happiness was to get in touch with who they are and what do they stand for? What higher values do they live for? And so what I'm about to share is really super important. And I think you're going to enjoy it, not only because I've shared this with thousands of people all over the world, but because I think it has real relevance to you, and especially as we're coming towards Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the ultimate judgment is, as you've probably heard the Hasidic story of Rabbi Zusha, when Rabbi Zusha was on his deathbed, and he was asked, you know, what are you afraid of? And he said, I'm not afraid that they will ask me why was I not as great as Moses? Because I'm not Moses, and I'm not afraid that they won't ask me, why were you not as great as Rabbi Akiva? Because I'm not Rabbi Akiva. But what really scares me is if they ask me, why were you not as great as you, Zusha? So living up to who we are is in many ways the ultimate judgment that we will have to face, which is that we will have to face ourselves. So let's talk about who are you? And I do want to say that my sources is from the Kabbalah. A lot of people have different opinions about the Kabbalah, but the Kabbalah is not some new religion or a new thought that came out of nowhere. The Kabbalah is an inherent part of Judaism. It is, you might say, more the science behind Judaism. The Talmud tells us the what's and the hows. The Kabbalah deals with the whys and gives us the context, you might call it the science of spirituality, or the science of engineering abundance and blessing in our lives. So my sources are Kabbalah. And what I want to talk about is you. Who are you? So a number of years ago, my student was over for Friday night dinner. I have an organization called Israelite. And we, for many, many years, had seminars and workshops and for young people, but it didn't really matter what age you were. It really had to do with whether you are a seeker, and it doesn't matter what age, we are all able to be seekers at every age. Well, but this girl was about 18 years old, and she was at my home for Friday night dinner. And she was talking about her family. So I asked her, where you from? And she told me that her mother actually is in Japan right now. So I said, oh, that's interesting. What's your mother doing in Japan? So she said, well, my mother, she's looking for herself. All right, fine. I think that's a familiar phrase. People look for themselves. But my daughter, who at the time was about 7, 8 years old, my kids are Israeli. They understand English, not great, but they do understand English. And when they hear English, they translate it into Hebrew in their heads. Just like when I hear Hebrew, I translate it into English in my head. So my daughter was kind of following the conversation until this young woman said, my mother's in Japan and she's looking for herself. My daughter couldn't figure out what she said. So she turns to me in Hebrew and she says, Abba, Mayimra? Daddy, what did she say? So I said, well, Ima Shala, her mother, Hiba Japan. Now you know some Hebrew. Japan is Japan. And and she is looking for herself. At that moment, my daughter, her big brown eyes grew wide and worried, and she went, whoa, whoa. I got inside her head and I said, this is very scary. I mean, you could lose yourself. I mean, my daughter's thinking about, I did lose my keys the other day. I did lose a doll once before, but I could even lose myself? Like, that's really scary. How do you lose yourself? A person's in a hotel. They check out of the hotel. Suddenly, myself, I could have sworn I had myself with me. Actually, the last time I saw myself was in the bathroom mirror. maybe I'm still there. So he runs back to the receptionist. Excuse me, I think I left myself in the room. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We have cleaned out that room. But we do have a lost and found, which will be open tomorrow morning. But I think I've lost myself. How do we lose ourselves? How do we find ourselves? How do we even talk this way? How can I be both the subject and the object of the same sentence? People talk about liking themselves. Who's the you that's liking you? There are sadly a lot more people, I think, that don't like themselves. So who's the you that doesn't like you? Or there are people that are hurting themselves. Who is hurting who? Or for instance, I was in the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and I was in a store, in a supermarket, and a fellow walked in. He was drunk, and he starts screaming, "I'm gonna kill myself! I'm gonna kill myself!" Well, the management was disturbed and wanted to get him out of the store. They called the police very quickly. A policeman shows up, and the guy's screaming, "I'm gonna kill myself! I'm gonna kill myself!" So the policeman very sweetly wanted to engage him in conversation and said, "Now, why do you want to kill yourself?" And the guy's caught off guard, like nobody's talked to him, so he's thinking, but he's drunk. And he says, "Well, because my mama hates me, my daddy hates me, and quite frankly, I hate me, so I'm going to kill myself." So policeman said, "But what do you hope to accomplish if you kill yourself?" And this drunken guy's thinking, he's trying to figure it out. And he said, "Well, because when I kill myself, I'm going to be happy. Yeah, I'm going to be real happy when I kill myself." So policeman says, well, listen to what you're saying. If you kill yourself, you're going to be dead." And the guy says, "What?" I said, "Yeah. And if you're dead, how will you know you're happy? You're dead." And the guy said, wait a second. If I kill myself, I'm going to be dead? Policeman says, "That's right. Wait a second. And if I'm dead, how will I know I'm happy? I'm dead." Policeman said, "That's right." He said, "Oh man, I can't even kill myself and be happy." Now, what did this guy think he was going to do? Who did he think was going to survive his suicide? So what I'd like to share with you is a map of who you are. Who really are you? And the terminology I use to explain these deep Kabbalistic ideas is me, myself, and I. So I'm just going to ask if we can just show you very quickly so you can visualize what we're going to talk about. We've got the me, the self, the I. Let's first talk about the self. As you can see, the self, you are a soul. This is already a big new idea, and we can take it off for now, so maybe you can see better. You are a soul. You don't have a soul. I know we talk about my body, my soul, but we also talk about myself, but I don't have a self. I am a self. You are a soul, but you as a soul come into this world to play a character, and we're going to call that me. So let's see that chart again. You've got me, myself, and I. The self is the soul. The me is the character that I'm playing. For instance, I am actually not Rabbi David Aaron. I am a soul playing the character David Aaron like an actor. You can have an actor that's playing a character. Kabbalah teaches that you are a soul and you've been given a character to play. Okay? You've been given a character to play. I am Rabbi David Aaron. Not really. I'm a soul that plays Rabbi David Aaron. But I want to tell you something. I'm not so happy to tell you this, but I'm not so sad either. I'm going to die. Rabbi David Aaron is going to die, but I am not going to die because I'm a soul. And if this is the only thing you get out of this talk, it will be well worth it. You are a soul in a body playing a character. Imagine an actor gets a role. And you can take off the chart. Imagine an art actor gets a role in a movie. Very excited about that. He's going through the screen, he's going through the script, and he sees that in scene 8, he dies. He's scared. I don't want to die. He runs back to the producer, director, says, excuse me, I can't do this. I can't do this movie. So why not? I don't want to die. What do you mean you don't want to die? Well, I see right here, I die in scene 8. You're not going to die. You're not going to die. Your character's going to die. You're going to get up and win an Oscar. You see, Judaism teaches that you are a soul and you will never die. You will never die. That's an amazing idea. Let me ask you a question. When you were a child, did you ever ask this crazy question? Who would I have been if my mother would have married another man? Now, since I can't see anybody here, so I can't ask you to please raise your hands. But who would I have been if you can resonate with that question? Only souls can ask that question. What do you mean, who would I have been if my mother would have married another man? I wouldn't have been. No, I would have been, but maybe I would have been in a taller body. Maybe I would have had blonde hair. Maybe I would have spoken a different language. But somehow we intuit that we, the self, exists independent of our body and our character. That's unbelievable. My wife read an article about somebody who was in hypnotherapy. They got therapy through hypnosis. And in this hypnosis, they were taken back to a previous life. They were asked questions about their previous life. And they started to, in detail, describe the family they grew up in, the home, the village they were in, and all that was amazing. But what was really amazing is they did this all in French. They didn't know French. Before they were in this hypnotic state, they didn't know French. So you are a soul, and in this life, and I'm being very careful, in this life, you're playing the character. I'm playing Rabbi David Aaron. Who did I play in my previous life? If I had one, I not necessarily did. We don't all have previous lives. And who might I play in a upcoming life? And we don't all have to come back. That we don't know. But you are a soul, and you come into this world to play a character. Now, I said we're going to talk about self-worth, because the most important question in our lives is, what is the source of unconditional self-worth? We all know the mitzvah, the commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. Most people don't realize that that is based on loving yourself. Because I know some people that I prefer them to love me not the way they love themselves. Most people don't realize that you have a mitzvah to love yourself. Because if you're not loving yourself, it's very hard to love other people, and it's very hard to receive love from other people. So what is the secret to unconditional self-worth? This is the secret, that you are a soul playing a character. Now, most people's self-worth is based on their character. You know, I'm smart, I'm attractive, I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm talented, I've got lots of friends. But the sad thing about that is all that's going to go. Boom, like that. All that could just be gone in seconds. And we know that. So we live with a sense of insecurity. Because we know that maybe I'm really smart, but who says I'll be smart forever? Maybe I'm really attractive. Who says I'll be attractive forever? I have a friend. He has a picture of an old woman. She looks like she's in her 90s on his desk. She doesn't look good. I asked my friend, is this your grandmother? He said, no. I said, this is your great aunt. He said, no. I said, who is this woman on your desk? So actually, I personally don't know her, but she was Miss America like 1910 or something. You know, she won the beauty pageant, the beauty competition of Miss America. So I said, you know, I might understand a man having a picture of Miss America taken in 1910. Why do you have a picture of Miss America taken when she's 90 years old and she looks terrible? He said, it humbles me and reminds me that she must have really thought she was something in 1910. You see, if a person thinks that their self-worth is their money, what happens if you lose your money? There are people that because they lost their money, they committed suicide. If you think that your self-worth is your fame, well, you could be on the top of the charts, but most people don't stay up there very long, and then suddenly you're a nobody. And then how do you feel about yourself? Well, Judaism says that your self-worth is not your character. Now, we will return to the character, understand what is the value of the character, but it's important to understand that your self-worth are not your talents, not your looks, not your intelligence, not all the friends you have, not all the fame you have. That is not the source of self-worth. You are a soul playing a character. So what is the source of self-worth? So for that, if we can take a look at the chart again, we're going to go now to the I. So you see, you've got the soul, and the soul comes into the world to play a character. And you have to be careful not to get lost in your character and start to think that the source of your self-worth is your character. You are a soul. So the question is, what is a soul? In order to understand a soul, we have to go to the I. Now, what I'm about to share here might be something radically different than you've ever heard before, because the I is God, Hashem. Now, why is this so radical? And give me a chance to explain. See, most people, including myself when I was a child, thought, even more, even a teenager, thought that God is an invisible man in heaven, somewhere over there. The first Russian astronaut, when he was in outer space, he was asked by ground control, what do you see? And he said, I don't see God. Now, what did he think he's going to see? He's in outer space driving his, his spaceship. Probably doesn't have a steering wheel. He's driving a spaceship, and suddenly two eyes appear in outer space with a hand waving, hello, I am God, what took you so long? Is that what he was expecting? He says, I didn't see God. What did he think he's going to see? See, most people think that the reason they don't see God is because he's too far somewhere in heaven. The reason why you can't see God is for the same reason you can't see yourself. Because God, according to Kabbalah and Torah, is the self of yourself, the soul of your soul. That's very different. God is not some guy in the sky over there. He's actually the soul of your soul. The metaphor used in Kabbalah is we are to God like a ray of light is to the sun, emanating from the sun, a part of the sun. The Kabbalah teaches us that we are, so to speak, a part of God. Now, of course, God doesn't break up into parts, into little pieces, but we are to God like a ray of light is to the sun. We are a limited expression of God. Or think of it this way. In the room that you're in, there's an air conditioner probably, and there's a light bulb, and let's say there's a kettle for hot water. They're all connected to the same self. That's called electricity. When the electricity flows through the air conditioner, the power of cooling is expressed. When it flows through the kettle, the power of heating is expressed. And when it flows through the light bulb, the power of lighting is expressed. So, back to using our metaphor, the character would be, in this case, the light bulb. The soul of the light bulb would be the power of lighting. And the soul of the light bulb would be electricity. This is the source of self-worth. That you are connected to the infinite. You are infinitely greater than you could have ever imagined. Because God is not some guy, some invisible man over there. He's actually the soul of our souls. The soul of our souls. For instance, there are people that say to me, I don't feel God in my life. I don't know if there's really a God. You know, and why should I even listen to God? Who's he to tell me what to do? This is my life. I can do with it as I please. So I say to my audiences, I say, well, let's do a little experiment. We can do that right now too. I'm going to ask you all, if you don't mind, for the next 30 seconds to turn off your hearts, if you don't mind. I'll count. I've got a timer here. And I'll let you know when you can turn your hearts back on. Well, that's obviously pretty ridiculous. You can't turn your heart off and on at will. But if you can't turn your heart off and on at will, then that means you're not beating your heart. Because if you were beating your heart, then you could turn it off and on. Now, if you're not beating your heart, who is? Whoever that is, I suggest we stay in good contact. Now, some people might want to say, well, it's nature, or that, you know, it's not about a word. It's about a direct knowing that I am connected to a power greater than myself. How about this? Right now, there are something like 70 muscles in my face that have to work in perfect coordination for every syllable to come out of my mouth. Now, first of all, I don't even know how there's place in my face for all those muscles. I'm such a muscular guy. I flex my cheeks. I mean, where is it? But not only that, right this very second, I don't even know how to talk. I mean, I'm talking, I'm moving my hands, and I'm doing something that I have no clue how to do. Is this actually Rabbi David Aaron talking? How could I talk when I don't know how to talk? What you're witnessing right now is what we call a partnership between the soul of souls, Hashem, God, the soul that is playing David Aaron. I choose to talk, and Hashem enables me to talk. But every word that comes out of my mouth is a cooperative partnership between myself and the self of all selves, the great I, Hashem. Our minds, I'm thinking. You're thinking? Did you teach yourself how to think? Are you even able to stop thinking? I'm going to ask you all to stop thinking for 5 seconds. You can't. You're always thinking. What you think is your choice. That you think, in that you have no choice. Feelings. You feel love in your heart. Did you teach your heart to love? No. So whoever is the source of thinking, feeling, moving, and it's not me and it's not you, whoever that is, that's what we mean when we say God, Hashem. And so, you know, that means that every breath you take and every move you make, he's not just watching you, he's enabling you. And that's from, I don't know, in Mexico, if you listen to one of the great Rabbis, Sting, the pop singer Sting. So right now, you think you're watching Rabbi David Aaron give a class. But Rabbi David Aaron doesn't know how to think, doesn't know how to speak, doesn't know how to move. He just chooses to show up and says, please, God, use me. And honestly, this is what I experience when I teach. I don't feel this is me talking. I feel that I'm being channeled. They actually today, they call it flow. That my job is to show up and get my ego out of the way and be a vehicle, be a conduit for a power much greater than myself. And very often when I speak, a little voice speaks to me and tells me what to say next. Problem is, it's in Japanese, so I put it in Google Translate. But this is the amazing thing. This is the amazing thing. So you are a soul, and a soul is a ray of God. And God is the soul of all souls. And you, what is the source of self-worth? The source of self-worth, now we bring in the character, is how to serve God. Now, what does it mean to serve God? It means to serve, to be a vehicle, a channel, a conduit for something about God to come in the world through me. In other words, David Aaron is a light bulb. The soul is the power of lighting. The soul of souls is electricity. And it's all about being a vehicle for the brilliance of electricity to come into the world through me. It's called service. Service. Each and every one of you has a talent that you were just gifted. What are you doing to serve, to bring in the world a greater consciousness that we all share oneself? When we say God, we are not referring to an invisible man separate over there telling us what to do. When we say God, we're talking about the one self, and each and every one of us is a facet of that self, like white light and the spectrum of colors in white light. We are all, at Sinai, when the Jewish people had the revelation at Sinai, who did they hear? Well, according to Kabbalah, the understanding of the verse, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, your God that took you out of Egypt. What does that mean? I am, Yud He Vav He is the word, which means I am existence. That name is called Shema Havaya. It literally means that, when an atheist says, I don't believe there's a God in existence, we'll agree with him. There is no God in existence. God is existence, and infinitely more than that. At Sinai, the first words we heard is, I am existence. Elohecha, I am the self of yourself, the soul of your soul. I am the owner of all your powers. I am the master self of all. So at Sinai, who did we hear? We met ourself, not myself, not yourself, not the sum total of ourselves, but rather the one self, the soul of the universe, which each and every one of us is a facet of. Think of it this way. Think of a tree, and imagine every leaf on the tree is a different person. Imagine two leaves having an argument and saying terrible things to each other. Don't they realize that on a deep level they share a twig? Okay, well, our family is the best family, but we can't stand the family next door. But you actually share a branch. Okay, well, we're part of that branch, but we can't stand the people in the other neighborhood. But their branch is connected to a bigger branch, and all those branches are connected to a trunk, and all of them are emanating out of a root. That's how Kabbalah understands who we are. You are a soul. A soul is a limited expression of the soul of all souls, which we call God. There is one self, and each and every one of us is here to bring into the world through the unique strengths that we have, something about the truth that we are all one. We say, Ahavta l'recha kamocha ani Hashem. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am God. What's I am God got to do with it? Just love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how could you expect me to love my neighbor as myself? Because I am God. I am God means I am all there ever was, is, and ever will be. There is only one existence. You are a part of me. Your friend is a part of me. On a deep level, we all share one self. See, I kind of knew that. You see, I didn't grow up religious. You see me right now, Rabbino. But when I was a teenager, I was into rock and roll. And my favorite part of rock and roll at the concert we go to was that in the middle of the concert of thousands of people, people would hold a match. Today, people hold up their cell phones, but that is a desecration of rock and roll. But what can you do? And I remember as a teenager, and I had nothing to do with Judaism other than the fact that I was born Jewish. I remember the first time I saw thousands of people hold a match. I needed to hold that match, to have a match. And there was something so beautiful about that experience. Well, I didn't know what it was. I just loved it and waited for that moment where the entire concert hall was just one fire together. We were one. We were one. Anyways, a little bit later on in my teenage years, I was invited to a Shabbat experience with a youth organization. And it was 300 young people celebrating Shabbat together. I'd never celebrated Shabbat. And they put in the lobby, in the hallway, tables, long tables with hundreds of candles. And people were singing and dancing and preparing ourselves to light these candles. Well, everybody lit their candles, and I remember thinking, this is familiar. I mean, I've never done this before, but I feel like I've done this before. And suddenly I realized I did do this before. That all the time I was going to these rock concerts, I was looking for Shabbat. I was looking for a sense of self that was part of a greater self that I share with all people. And that greater self is what we call God. So now back to your character. Everybody has been given a strength. And self-worth is when I use my strength to serve God. But what does it mean to serve God? To serve God means to serve to bring into the world a greater awareness that God is one. We are one with God. We are one with each other through God, because there's really only one self, one soul. When we were children, we were taught Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. And I was taught that there is one God. That's not what it's saying. It's not saying there, somewhere over there, in the category of gods, there's just one, but in the category of people, there's many. Shema Yisrael means not there is one God, but God is one. There is none but this one self, this one universal consciousness, this one soul. And you are a part. If God were the ocean, you'd be a drop. These are different metaphors. And so Shema Yisrael is saying to me that not there is one God somewhere over there, but God is one. There's none but the one. You are someone, some of the one. And so is everybody else in this world. Now, I've been gifted the ability for public speaking. It's just a gift. I did nothing to do this. I did nothing. I didn't study this. It's just a gift. Since I'm a little boy, I did acting. People are, very afraid to get on stage. I was never afraid to get on stage. It's just a gift. Now, what am I going to do with it? I wanted to go into acting. I'm so thankful that I didn't, me personally. I'm not telling people don't go into acting. I'm just me personally. Because really, what am I doing to promote the truth of one self-consciousness, which is to say that Hashem is one, that we are all one with this one self, one soul that unites us all. Now, there's something else that we all have. We have something broken. I once heard a very nice metaphor. How can you know what your purpose in life is? So it's kind of like you show up at a construction site and they hand you a bag. You don't know what you're doing there. Well, in my bag, there's a saw, hammer, nails. Okay, I'm a carpenter. In your bag, there's testers and wires and fuses. Okay, you're an electrician. Look in your bag. You are a soul and you've been given strengths. And your self-worth is how you use your strength to serve God. And what does it mean to serve God? It means to serve to allow you and others to feel that we share oneself and love each other in that way. But there's something else in our bags, something broken. In my case, I'm a son of a survivor. I grew up knowing I was Jewish. We weren't religious, but I felt very Jewish because I always felt guilty, so I knew I must be Jewish. But I remember at a young age, I heard my mother screaming in the middle of the night, and I knew she was having a nightmare of the concentration camp. But my mother never talked about the concentration camp. She just yelled about it, screamed it in the middle of the night. At a very young age, I was traumatized by that. And I remember thinking, is there a God? And if there's a God, is he good? And if he's good, why is there so much bad in the world? And if we're the chosen people, I really wish he chose somebody else. That was how I felt for many years until, thank God, I met somebody that taught me the beauty, the power, the truth of Torah in my later teens when I was 18. So what do I do with that? I struggled with God my whole life. I have the power speaking. How can I use my strengths? How can I use my own wounds of my past to bring about a greater consciousness of Shema Yisrael, that God is one, and that we are one with God, and we are one with each other through God? What is the greatness of yourself? The greatness of yourself is you are a soul. A soul is a part, a facet of God. If God were the ocean, you'd be a drop. If God were white light, you'd be one of the colors in the spectrum of white light. If God were the sun, you'd be a ray of his light. Whatever words we use, these are all metaphors and poetic. But each and every one of us, there's a famous scientist that says that if we were to fill in New York City Grand Central Station with dust, then one speck of dust would be planet Earth. On this speck of dust is 7 billion people. That means that mathematically, each and every one of us is much less than 1/7 billionth of a speck of dust. And yet, even though everything mathematically and scientifically outside of me says I'm no one, inside me, I know I'm someone. I just know I'm someone. And you do too. You know you're someone. You're some of the one. You're some of the one self, the one soul, the I am Hashem. And so, what is Judaism about? What is Torah life about? It's about being the whole you, to be the total you. You are a part of a greater self. And your joy and your greatness is to serve to become aware of that and serve to help others become aware of that so we can love and respect each other more. And every single one of us has got talents. Every single one of us has difficult childhood experiences or weaknesses, which help us become empathetic to other people who have those weaknesses. And we can use everything in our character to serve to bring into the world a greater awareness of Hashem Echad, that God is one. We are one with Hashem. We are one with each other through Hashem. And when a person feels that connection, we're all looking for connection. A person that made a lot of money on that is a guy named Zuckerberg. He realized that people crave connection. So he made up Facebook. We crave connection. Why do we crave connection? Because we are connected. We're connected to a power greater than ourselves, and we're connected to each other through that power that's greater than ourselves. And our job in whatever field we're in is to ahavta l'recha kamoch. Love your neighbor as yourself, Ani Hashem. I am existence. I am reality. I'm all there ever was, is, and ever will be. There's nothing but one I am. Your I am and my I am are part of this greater I am that we all share. So that's what I wanted to share, and I'd be happy to try and respond to your questions.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. This teaching is so amazing. I read it already in your books, and really it changes all form of thinking about our mission in this world. So to hear it again is so clarifying and amazing.
Great, thank you very much.
Somebody's asking that if you think that the only way to connect to that I is through Torah.
Well, let's think of it this way. Let's say I'm really a soul that's meant to play the role of an actor. I'm sorry, of an artist. But my parents, since I'm a little boy, told me to be a doctor. So although I have a natural desire to express myself through art, I repress myself and I apply to medical school. Well, the fellow that is interviewing me in medical school, he starts to see that I'm not the soul that's supposed to be playing a doctor. He sees that I'm a soul that should be playing the role of an artist. And he says to me, why do you want to be a doctor? I said, well, because my mother and father told me all along I should be a doctor. And he says, you know what? It's just not your way. Everybody has a path. Everybody has a path. I am not going to tell the whole world that they should be living a Torah life, but a Jewish person who's in this world, Torah says that this is how we are able to be in line with who we are and how we can best serve to bring more of God into the world, which is the same thing as saying bring more consciousness of the one self, one soul that we're all part of. And so it is the path for a Jewish person. However, you know, I'm not going to tell you, everybody, just jump in and do it all at once, because that's ridiculous. Nobody could do that. Nobody's going to come out of that normal. You just can't all of a sudden. In my journey back to Judaism, I started to see that there's something to this. I wanted to give it a chance. So they told me about blessings. I was told that, you know, there's a tradition that before you eat, you acknowledge where the food came from. And I said, you know what? That makes sense to me. I could see that that would enhance the quality of my life and the enjoyment in my life, that I would eat, and before I would eat, I would take a moment to be aware of and not take granted my food. So I started making blessings on my food. I wasn't eating kosher yet, but I started making blessings on my food. And then someone told me that there's a very nice prayer that you could say when you wake up. Modani lefanecha melechai b'kayam shechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla Rabbi Motach. And they said, you know what? Try that. Try in the morning that the first things that comes out of your mouth is to be grateful. And I said, you know what? That makes sense. So I started doing that. And I just kind of slowly began to upgrade my involvement in Torah life. So I believe, you know, I teach Torah not because I think it's true. I think it's true, but that's not why I teach Torah, because I think math is true, and I don't teach math. I teach Torah because it's given me a phenomenal life. And so I teach Torah as an act of kindness, because I genuinely believe that when a person has Torah in their lives, you know, when I have Shabbat in my life, Shabbat has given me my life. I was running and rushing, and Shabbat just brought me back to being present with myself. And what Shabbat has done for my marriage and for my family, it makes sense that this is a way to stay aware of myself as part of a greater self. That's what Torah is about. Everything in Torah you could call are building blocks of consciousness so that you can be aware of yourself as part of a greater self that you share. And this is where people are in pain. We have lost our sense of self. I could have everything and feel like nothing, because who am I? And how do I live a lifestyle that I talk, think, and act in ways that constantly reminds me that I am part of the Creator. I am part of the soul of the universe. And so, but I honestly, even in my own journey, I didn't just start doing it all. I just kind of included a little more, and I asked for guidance. What else could I kind of add? I didn't go too fast. I didn't go too slow. And so, but I do believe if you are Jewish and you've come to this world to live as a Jew, that this is how Jews fulfill our higher self. But there are other paths that are the right paths for other people.
So for a Jew, this is the only path for somebody that's Jewish?
Well, you know what? People have to be very, very careful, because I'll give you an example. I was with my father, Zichron Bracha, at the beach. And at the beach, there was a family that looked very religious, a father with his sons. And they were having their lunch. And after they had their lunch, the father, who looked very religious, threw their garbage into the sea. My father, who was not religious, was, and so was I, very upset about that. He went over to the father and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "What's it your business?" He said, "I own the sea." Well, he said, "No." He said, "You can't throw your garbage in the sea." He said, "Why don't you mind your own business?" Who at that moment was, so to speak, religious? Who in that moment was living Torah? My father or this man? My father. So that's why it's very dangerous to answer, well, Torah is the only path. I think a person that lives to give tzedakah, they are charitable people. There are some people that are very careful in what they put in their mouth, but they're not careful with what they say that comes out of their mouth. And there's some people that are very careful what they say that comes out of their mouth, but they're not so careful what they're putting into the mouth. Who is religious? Who's following the path? So yes, in general, I believe that the Torah gives us the blueprint for how we can live the most fulfilled life. But once again, does that mean that religious people are more fulfilled than unreligious people? No, because the unreligious people are probably doing a lot more mitzvahs than they can imagine. And a lot of the religious people are doing a lot more sins than they actually are willing to admit. So who's religious, who's not? I'm not trying to encourage anybody to be religious. I'm trying to encourage people to be themselves. If you are Jewish, then I encourage you to seriously explore, what does Judaism say about how to be the best you? And that's what I believe.
Okay, so somebody's asking, Rabbi, this is very interesting. And she's asking, or he's asking, that they don't teach us a lot about Kabbalah. And in his case, he thinks that his defects also teaches him what is his mission in this world. And it's not necessarily in touch with Torah. Like he's very aware about his defects, and he's looking and searching for his mission, but he doesn't think that's necessarily engaged with Torah learning.
Look, I think people, I want to be very, very clear. I don't want people to think that if they're not living a Torah life, they couldn't be happy. And if they are living a Torah life, then they for sure are happy. Because you have to live a Torah life the right way. We are taught that a person that learns Torah for the right sake, it brings them life. A person that learns Torah with the wrong intention, it brings them death. It's poisonous. So the intention is very important. But I do believe that if a person follows the Torah with the right intention, then they might be already very happy. I believe that this will enable them to be even happier. Okay? So I would not deny that a person feels that they're doing good and they're feeling fulfilled. And I would never say that's not possible because you're not living a Torah life. I honestly believe that probably what you're doing that's enabling you to feel fulfilled is actually already what Torah is saying. You're probably doing kindness. You're probably committed to a cause. I hardly believe that a person is saying, I feel fulfilled and I think I'm doing good because I eat hamburgers all day long. I highly doubt whoever's asking me this question. You're obviously serving to bring more consciousness of unity and love and mutual respect. And already in so much as you're doing that, you're living a lot of what Torah is about. The question is, are you open and are you willing to explore? Maybe you could even have more. Maybe. I think so. I've experienced it.
Okay. Okay, great answer. We have another question. Somebody's asking that if the essence of the human being is to decide, why Torah brings so much restrictions?
I didn't understand the question.
That if our essence, like human beings, is a liberty to decide, so why Torah bring us so much restriction?
Oh, you're talking about free choice.
Free choice, yeah. Like if the human being is so, the essence of human being is to decide what he wants to do and not. So why the Torah restricts us so much with so many mitzvot?
Excellent. Well, depends what you mean when you say restricts us. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm at a concert and I see this musician playing jazz guitar and he's amazing. I mean, his expression, his spontaneity, it's just amazing. And I say, I want to be like him. I want to be a jazz guitar player. So I come up to him after the concert and say, you know what? I want to be like you. I want to have that flow and spontaneity and that beat and that freedom. So he says, well, if you want to, then you've got to go to this jazz school. It's the best jazz school in the United States. It's in Kentucky. Fine. So I get into the school, and the first 3 months, they're teaching me the history of the guitar. And I don't want to know anything about history. I want to play a guitar. Okay, finally they give me a guitar, and they show me these exercises that I have to do for hours. And my fingers are bleeding from the blisters. And I'm saying, but I want to play guitar. And they're telling me all the things I can't do if I really want to be a great guitar player. And I'm saying, I'm not looking for restrictions. I'm looking for the liberation and the spontaneity of that guitar player. So I go back to the guy and I say, you lied to me. I went to that school and they told me all the things I can't do, and I had to do all these difficult exercises that were uncomfortable. And it was a very restrictive environment. And he says, don't you get it? That's how you become a master. Discipline enables you to become a master. These are not restrictions that are meant to hold you back. These are disciplines that are there to enable you to invest your powers in the most focused way. And so it's not a restriction. It's not, everything that, a Shabbat that I'm not allowed to do, I don't experience as a restriction. I experience it as a liberation that helps me from becoming distracted, so I can focus on what it means to experience Shabbat. So what I can't do on Shabbat is what's enabling me to really focus on what I can and want to do on Shabbat. So, a person that really understands what Torah is about will experience this not as a restriction, but as a discipline. And great masters have discipline. When you see a person playing their guitar, there's a discipline there.
Okay, now that you're talking about music, there's a whole, I don't know who's playing outside here. Okay. Somebody asked in the chat, he's asking that how can we pass the tradition of godness, the goodness of God to the world without enough Torah as a people?
Without enough Torah.
Like, yeah, I will read it to you. It's how can we pass the tradition of goodness of God to the world without enough Torah, only like people?
I'm not sure I understand the question, because you're asking the wrong guy. I'm a rabbi. I don't think we can pass it on without the Torah. You know, it's like, how can we pass medical wisdom to the medical world without all the medical textbooks and all the practices of medicine? I mean, it is what it is. I'm just encouraging people to get an education because I felt I got ripped off, because I really did not think that Judaism was a gift. To me, it was a burden. It wasn't a blessing. And I'm thankful that I met the right teachers that helped me see how amazing my spiritual path is and how it helps me live the best version of myself. So I think we need Torah, and I think we need the lifestyle of Torah in order to live up to our potentials that we can live up to as Jews.
Okay. So I have one more question, if it's okay with you.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So somebody's asking that it causes a little bit of like confusion to think that that's God, it's in each one of ourselves.
Right. Well, God is not inside of each one of us. You know, it's kind of like, I go back to my metaphor of electricity. Electricity is flowing into the light bulb, but not the entire electricity is in the light bulb, because the light bulb would explode. So a limited flow of electricity is going into the light bulb. So that means that you are a soul, a limited expression of the soul of all souls, which is what we call God. So I would not say you are God. I can't say that electricity is the power of lighting, but the power of lighting is a diminished, limited expression and facet of electricity. So you are a soul, and a soul is literally a facet, a limited facet of God himself. And that's why we intuit that we are important. Some of us actually think we're the center of the universe. Where do we get the guts to think that I matter? There's nothing about me that should convince me that I matter, except the fact that I am actually part of a greater self that we call God.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you very much. You know, can I do a quick commercial? First of all, some of my books are translated and available in Mexico, as well as I have a website called rabbidavidaaron.com. Aaron is A-A-R-O-N. And I have a very large library of recordings that you can download for free. I produce animations that are entertaining and educational, very short animations that are good for conversation. And I have a radio show called Soul Talk, which is available every Sunday. So if you find me on Facebook, or if you go to my website, you can even, if you want to sign up, you can get my weekly teachings. And I want to thank you so much. And I hope someday when we get over this pandemic, I'll be able to visit you. But it would be even more great if you could come visit me here in the land of Israel.
Thank you, Rabbi, so much. And that's what I wanted to say, that we will love to have you here in Mexico, but I think it will be best if we could go there, everybody, and visit you there, because
I can tell you right now, my son is a rabbi in Ranana, and he tells me that a very large group of Jews from Mexico are planning to make Aliyah very soon to his neighborhood.
Right, yeah.
So we invite you all to come home.
Thank you so much, and hopefully meet you in person.
I would love that.
Enjoy your teaching, because you're amazing how you teach all these concepts. Really, we enjoyed it so much.
Thank you.
And hopefully have you here in Mexico, if not there in Yerushalayim.
Baruch Hashem. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Shalom and Shana Tova Mituka.
Amen,
Sweet,
amen.
happy, good year. Shalom.
Amen. Thank you so much.